Is the red light on?
Yep. I like our coaching spots.
Alright, we gotta get comfy. Okay. Alright. Hey, Melissa.
Hi.
So I was wondering if you could, recall what happened in your lesson that I watched.
Okay, so I was asking Chris questions of how the author used description to add to his detail in the paperboy. And as we did that, I wanted Chris to start to understand and identify details in the story, and also how he could write detail in his own story.
Okay.
And it unfolded pretty well, because as we started to discuss the setting and asking him some questions, he was able to elaborate more about his own life and to, I guess, enjoy the book a little bit better than the first time I read it out loud to him. And we went back and forth and read it and had a conversation on it. But at the end, he was able to go back into the text and say, oh, here was the detail he added to the description, here's what happened, this is why they used green rubber bands for the newspaper. So I think it went pretty well, because at the end, when I asked him to do that, he was able to do it. And today, just a little, springboard into our lesson today, he was completing his final draft, and he was adding details and talking with details. So I had to assess that, okay, he learned something from yesterday from that lesson. So I was happy with it.
So you were happy with the way he was able to use the details. Is there anything else that he did during the lesson that you feel was successful for him?
I'm trying to remember. He made connections to his own life. He was able to go back in the text and recognize the detail. And I think I saw more of what he did today from yesterday's lesson, like in his writing and in his speaking with me. It started flowing better. So maybe it was a good practice yesterday for him. And we actually, we went outside because he wanted to go outside. I'm like, that's perfect. We'll go outside for a little lesson. And what we did, I was like, we'll go outside. We're going to sit here. You're going to tell me a story using first, next, then, and finally, and using descriptions. So we sat out there. It was nice. It was windy. He's like, first, we sat in the garden. We're in the garden. And he explained it in detail. Then he just went what he saw. And it came out beautifully. And then it just wrapped up nicely. He goes, and finally, my mom's car pulled up, and it was white. And his mom's car had pulled up. And we got up. I'm like, that was excellent. You just now are just using detail automatically. And that really made my heart happy, because I said, this was an improvement. If anything else, Chris will know how to write in order and talk, speak in sequence and use the details. And I'm glad he was able to do it without a lot of prompts. I just sat there. I was like, next transition. He's like, then. He's like, oh wait, we're on next to that. No, he's like, first, next, then. Okay. He's like, then this happened. Finally. So now he knows it by heart. Like, it's in his head.
That's so cool.
So yeah, that was really cool for me today, and I needed that. So I was like, awesome. So
it's always good when they make you, they make your heart go.
They heart like, oh god.
It's always good.
Something, that's the best way to explain it. I'm like, my heart was happy then. I was like, awesome, Chris. Thank you so much today for that. Yeah. So.
Okay. So obviously, you feel that what you did in this lesson definitely has stuck with him, and now he's able to do it with minimal prompting.
Exactly. When I say detail, he knows when I'm talking about detail. Okay, all right, here we go. And we just got to keep pushing. I'm like, what about colors? Like, okay, colors. And we just kept talking back and forth. And I'm like, and I never really taught that way before. I think I teach like really structured sometimes, a little too structured. And I'm like, let's just be free and go outside and learn and use detail like that and just keep pushing him. And he does most of the work because he's the one learning, and I facilitated, and it was a good learning experience for me.
Well, it sounds like you're really tailoring your instructional choices to Chris. It's not like what you think would have worked well in your classroom, or it's not what you think worked well in a textbook. You're only looking at Chris, and you're just doing what Chris needs. And obviously, it's working, which is cool.
Thanks.
This is good.
Yeah, it is cool.
So, what do you feel that you did during the lesson that I observed that made him so successful?
I saw myself, and I think something we talked about before, like consciously, and I tried cautiously not to ask too many closed questions. Sometimes I knew I caught myself and I did it. I was like, oh man, I did it again. But a lot of times I felt, okay, well, I feel like I am improving. Like I think I asked a lot of open questions too, or kept pushing him. Okay, well, instead of accepting his first response, even second, I was like, thinking to myself, we gotta keep pushing him a little further. Okay, well, what about this, or what about that? And I wouldn't let it go until I knew he got it. Because usually I say, okay, well, I don't want to say anything more. Maybe I shouldn't push him, but I can't. I can push the student, and then he could reach it, and then have his aha moment. So I felt like in my aha moment, and I felt like I did that yesterday, and it's just been leading throughout a good week as far as my tutoring sessions with him. So I think that I did well. I think I'm starting to think, instead of like not thinking about it and I don't want to say not caring, but just asking questions. Now I'm like thinking, what questions am I asking him so he could meet my objective or what I want him to learn today. So that started happening for me.
Yeah,
in that lesson
and
yesterday.
actually, we'll get to the tool in just a second, and we can talk more in depth about your questions. But before we do that, is there anything that you did differently in your lesson than you had planned for, or do you think you stuck to the plan?
I pretty much stuck to the plan. I didn't change anything like I did last time. I had to with his writing, but as far as what I had planned, I stuck with it because I felt like it would really help him with what I wanted him to do. And at that point, I didn't feel like I should change or take the book away or change.
Why did you feel that way?
Because he was progressing. He was with his responses, with reading, and a lot of times Chris would tell me like if I messed up or I did something wrong. He keeps me on check too. So we're both learning from each other. Like he's a little perfectionist. He's really hard on himself, and he's a math person and I'm not. And we keep going back and forth, and sometimes I think, you're 9 years old. It's like, okay, but I was like, okay, I can learn from my students. It's not just me. And it's not just my knowledge. And he's going to make me a better teacher, just like hopefully I can make him a better student. So just like the engagement we had, the discussion, how he was answering it, that showed me I'm not going to change it and keep going with this. That was pretty loud.
It's okay. So you felt like because he was progressing and the lesson was going accordingly, there was no need to really change anything, which is a good. You're using your. I can't think of the word. Well, you're just using your expectations and your knowledge of what should be happening and sticking to the plan. So I wanted to share with you my tool that I made for you.
Okay,
and
great.
Before we talk about it, I did want to say thanks for meeting with me before this conference, because I think it's a combination of both of us. When we had our planning conference and we were talking about like, are you asking those higher level questions, and maybe looking at Bloom's taxonomy. I know I wasn't really thinking deeply. I hadn't, like, prior to the planning lesson, gone and looked at Bloom's taxonomy.
And here's the thing, I need to learn how to ask open-ended questions before I get to high-level theme questions. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I need to practice this first and then move on to the higher level.
So I think we weren't really. I think we were looking. I was thinking like, oh, we'll ask the Bloom's taxonomy. Is she asking higher-level questions? But really, you had expressed a concern for open-ended versus closed questions, and I think that I don't know why, but I should have just stuck to that and done that. And
but at least you realized that.
So when I printed out the Bloom's taxonomy and I watched your lesson and I'm looking and I'm trying to match them all up, I realized that they all pretty much were in either we talked about this, but they were all either in the lower two levels. But it didn't really, the lesson didn't really have the opportunity to really even ask any of those higher questions anyway. So that's why I think it was a good idea that we changed the tool, because this tool is exactly what I think that you need to look at. So I just basically made a T-chart as well. On the left I had closed-ended questions, and I defined closed as basically, is it yes, no? Is there one answer or another, yes, no? And open-ended being open. So you went through, how does this story start, and you kind of only asked your closed-ended almost as a correction of the open-ended. So like you said, how does the author start the story? And he said, the mornings are dark and cold. And then he went on, and you said, well, is it dark out? Is it light out? And he said, oh, it's dark out. So it was in reference to that.
I probably should have said the morning, so how the mornings, explain how the mornings for Chris are dark and cold, or something like that. Like, you elaborate on that.
So instead of, is it dark or cold, like you said, you could have said, well, how is the morning? Because that wouldn't have had, like, just a one-er answer. When you wake up, is it cold in your home? He said a little, so maybe that could have been...
And that's what I realized. I'm like, oh, that's too short.
You realized that when you said it?
Yeah, that one I said... That's one word response. That was just not enough, and I'm like, okay, let's keep going.
But then you did a nice job going like getting him to get the detail by then following that up with an open-ended. So then you said, well, why is it cold? Because he said, yeah, it's cold. But then you said, well, why is it? And then he went on and on about like it's 69 degrees at night, but sometimes it's 74, and then he's sweating, and he went on and on and on about the temperature.
Yeah.
So you did a nice job. This was another closed-ended. So this is how your mornings start out. No, but that was more of like a. It's a small closed question just to get him back on the right track because he was incorrect with his explanation. He was explaining the wrong thing. He was talking about the paper boy's mornings instead of Chris's mornings. So here's where I started getting into a transcript. So that kind of goes in order.
I see.
I messed up in the beginning a little bit with the format, but now it goes like this is your progression of the lesson as you go. So when you go through everything, like, do you pass your sister's door when you're going down the steps? Sort of, and then he told her about the bathroom and the stairs and the tiled stairs and the regular stairs, and one goes into the kitchen, and he went
and that was a lot of details.
It was a lot of detail from a closed question.
So I kept prompting him there.
But you didn't even prompt him. You just asked the one question. Do you pass your sister's door when you're going down the steps? And he said, sort of. And then he told this whole little personal story about the stairs. So I think that that's kind of interesting to see that.
That is interesting.
I almost feel like he's growing and trying to elaborate, even if you don't ask him to. Like, that's a closed question, but he
wants to tell me more.
That's a yes or no question. Do you pass your sister's door? He could have just said yes. He could have just said no. But he actually went on. So I think that's
the whole way his house was.
Yeah, and then he told me all about your whole house. Or his whole house. So, is it dark out? Yeah. But most of them, and actually, there's only, I think, none at the end.
Yeah.
So I can see how, like, if you look at the progression of your whole lesson, most of your closed questions were in the beginning, and by the end, you didn't have any, because you were really going on. I think you kind of caught, were becoming conscious of it.
Yes.
And if you look, 21 plus 7 is 28. So you asked 28 questions in the lesson that I observed. Only 7 of them were closed, 21 were open.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of questions, first of all, which is good. It really got him thinking. Only 7 of them were closed.
Sweet. That's good. That's good. I'm glad I saw this because now you don't really know when you're asking, you're in the middle of it. Like, oh my goodness, but to see the progression of how it was, from both of us changing from beginning to the end of the lesson, that's great.
So, why do you think that you did better at the end, asking more open-ended questions?
I was more consciously thinking about it at practice. We were kind of feeling each other out, and then we just both went with it. So it started off like, okay, and then near the end, I'm like, okay, well, I kept pushing him. Well, how do you know? How does this? What does this? More open-ended at the end. And then he's like, okay, she's not going to back up. I'm going to keep pushing at it. And then on his own, he's like, okay, I'll give you more. So I think I didn't let down my guard. I was consciously aware where I was asking. I kept pushing my student, and that's what got me there. I'm happy. I really am. I'm like, okay, well, because before it would be a lot of closed questions. Do you think? So, I think that's
because
good.
even just rephrasing it from do you think to what
do you think? Explain. Well, how do you feel? Stuff like that. And, of course, usually he's 9 years old. He doesn't really want to at that point. But then once you get him in the groove.
And you can see, there's hard evidence, concrete evidence of that. And the fact that here, you asked him a closed question, and he gave you a very detailed answer. So I think that he's almost because he doesn't know the difference between open and closed questions, probably. He doesn't know what you're asking. So, but he's got that in his head that he knows. I can't just give one word answer. I gotta explain because she's gonna ask me why. And she's gonna ask me how. And she's gonna ask me.
Woman.
So it's like you come hit him with a closed question. He's like, oh, I better explain that, even though she didn't ask, because she's gonna ask me next.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you're training him.
Exactly.
Which is cool.
And this is just, like I said, we're learning from each other. This is something that I could take that I learned in my tutoring session with Chris, that I'm going to now branch out to my students in the fall. Like, okay, here we go. And they're going to know, nope, that's not good enough for me. Or for her, or even for myself to answer one-word responses. So this gets me excited that I'm going to like teach in a little different way come fall. That's great. Thank you for that tool. It was really helpful.
I'm glad it was helpful. It's interesting because it's like I don't think I've ever even done this for myself. You know, I've never really, and it's interesting to like, especially look at it this way with like the progression of the lesson. I'm glad that you found it helpful. It was actually kind of fun to do and like think like, oh, is that open or closed? Like I actually enjoy doing stuff like this.
I know.
So, do you think that I was helpful?
Very helpful, and I'm glad that you were helpful for me, because if you had stuck with a higher level thinking questions, I really wouldn't have understood if I was improving. Because first I had to improve my type of questions as far as open and closed, and then once I get that down, then I could branch off into more higher level thinking. You know, it's a process for me too, to get my students to think this way. Now they're thinking open, now I can go to a higher level. And that's what I saw. I'm like, okay, I started off with my progression, so I saw that. So yes, you were very helpful. And the tool is something that I could look back on and see, okay, this is how I'm improving. You know, and as a teacher, I can always improve and get better. So.
Yeah. And you could use the tool that I tried to use. You could use that as your next
as
step.
My next, exactly,
like,
as my next thing to improve on. Thanks, Michelle.
Awesome.
You were awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.